So it's been a week and a half since Universal announced that they are building a brand new theme park called Universal's Epic Universe. I'm Dan from ThemeParkNut.com, and today we are going to run through one of my Epic Universe theories. So the announcement of Universal's Epic Universe was a little bit light on detail, but they did give us one really good bit of concept art, which is just enough to get people like me, theme park enthusiasts, a bit obsessed with working out what is going on in this new park. There's been lots of speculation and lots of theories, so I thought might as well just add my own into the mix. Now, with all these theories that are going around, no one really knows what's going on, and a lot of people are pushing out similar theories at the same time, so I'm not saying I'm the only one thinking this, but there's one particular thing about the park that has really been bothering me, and I've just had a little bit of a revelation about it. So when the concept art dropped for Epic Universe, there was a couple of things that surprised me. That genuinely were a bit perplexing when I first looked at it. The first is that the very back of the park, or what I consider to be the back of the park, had a huge hotel. Now we know that Universal's going to build new hotels around this, but in the park itself is unusual. There's only a few theme parks in the world that have in-park hotels, the biggest probably being Tokyo Disney Sea, but most of those have the hotels at the front of the park. So it was a little bit weird that Universal's decided to have one as the weenie, as Disney would call it, at the back of the park. The other thing that really struck me as odd was that Super Nintendo World, or what we believe is Super Nintendo World, based on its similarities to the leaked model photos, is at the front of the park. Because in my head, I'd built up the fact that Super Nintendo World was going to be the anchor of this new park. And you look at the major parks around the world, the anchors for Magic Kingdom, for example, is Fantasyland. It sits behind the hub, right? It doesn't sit at the very front of the park. In fact, the front of Magic Kingdom, you've got one very large ride taking up the majority of that quarter, and pretty much open space at the edge of Tomorrowland. So, to have such a large land at the very front of the park, well, that's unusual. And this is where my revelation comes in. So maybe the problem is not so much my expectations of where things should be. Maybe the problem is my expectation is what the front and the back of the park are. And we've clearly got a front gate looking entrance at one end of the concept art. So I'm not saying that that's not an entrance, but I'm wondering whether Epic Universes is going to be a park with two true entrances. The park clearly has a large hub section that runs down the middle, and the interesting thing about this hub section is that it sort of expands and contracts around the lands. And at one end we've got a large entry plaza with big gates, like a traditional entry to a park. And we know from the other leaked plans and things that there are going to be car parks that are out to the side of the park that will feed into that spot. We also know that there's bus interchanges coming off the roads that will feed directly again into that spot. So everyone, me, myself included, looking at that concept art goes, yep, that's the front entrance. No worries, piece cake. Now it's clear people are going to be entering from the other end of the park because there's a hotel there, and there's no way that they would make people circle the park to get into it. That's crazy. But I'm actually talking a little bit larger scale than that. What if the entrance for people parking for some of the resorts was at one end of the park, and for some of the resorts and the on-site hotel was at the other end of the park? It would make an interesting dynamic where you could actually put some difference between the travel times, because that end of the park is much, much closer to the rest of Universal Orlando Resort. So why would you want to have resorts that go to different ends of the park? Well, to put it simply, Universal Orlando has multiple tiers of resorts, and it might make sense that you might want to make a direct line into the back of this park from your more expensive resorts at the main Universal Orlando campus. And we know there's going to be at least one entry that's going to be for the great unwashed, the general public, the people using parking. And there aren't going to be buses running down there, but it seems odd that if you had access to that back and you had people entering through that back, that you wouldn't funnel at least some of your crowd through that way, just to ease congestion at the starts and end of the day. Now, it wouldn't be the first park in the world to have multiple entrances. Epcot, for example, has a back entrance, but it's unusual to have a park laid out so directly that you would have one major entrance at either ends directly across the park. However, I think it would be really, really cool. What do you think of my theory? Leave a comment in the section down below with your thoughts about Epic Universe being potentially a two-ended theme park. Thanks for watching my video on Universal's Epic Universe. We'll be back on Friday with our regular Theme Park News in a Minute videos, so tune in to YouTube or your podcast app for that. In the meantime, you can check us out on Twitter at ThemeParkNut, or our blog is themeparknut.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, cheers.